Hi everyone, welcome back to Casual Watch Talk. You're joined by Sam and Kris. Kris, you're not joined me for a while.
I know, right? Hello.
Hello.
It's been a while.
I've been doing some interviews, and they've been with people in the UK, so we usually get up early for me, which is even more earlier for Kris. So
it's right. It's crazy. Like, yeah. I'll get these. You are definitely sent, like, I think a couple of the invites at least, just been like, hey, I'll just send it to Kris maybe. And it's like, yeah, 4:00 in the morning now. I'm good.
Yeah, I got to interview the Scottish Watches guys, Dave and Ricky, and I've chatted to them multiple times since on various different things. They're really cool guys. And then I interviewed Mike France at Christopher Ward about the new Aquitaine. And then we had Sinn, who was over on the Facebook group with that awesome interview we did where he talked about collecting his basically dream set of watches, and then he sold them all, and all the things that he learned through that process. And I think, as we know, I'm not one that keeps hold of watches for very long, so right. I could it was a great philosophy on that one. Did you manage to hear that one, Kris?
I didn't catch it.
Oh, you like that one. And also anybody else who's got a great story who wants to join us on the channel, just let us know, or join us on one of the live streams. We'd love to have you on.
And I didn't catch it because, like, I've been traveling, you've been traveling, so this is I got to load up my phone, and I'm going to be going on another trip soon. So load up some casual watch talk back catalog.
Absolutely, and I've been traveling to the UK, which we'll talk about. If you've been following me on Instagram, you'll see some of the pictures, but there was a lot more to it. Got to meet some other YouTubers as well, which I'll talk about. But before we dive into that, should we do a bit of a wristwatch check? Shall I go first, Kris?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm wearing my Seiko speed timer, my quartz one, which I haven't been wearing. I took my Christopher Ward to the UK. Thought it was very fitting.
Yeah, that seems on brand.
Yeah, bringing it back sort of to its spiritual home.
Right.
But this speed timer, there's something about it that I can't quite put my finger on it. It's on this bun strap, which Makola made over at Man Cave Leather. They've just done a really good job of it, Seiko. I know I give Seiko a hard time a lot of the time because they deserve it. I mean, for various reasons. But they've done an amazing job of this quartz watch. There's just something about the proportions of it and the way that they've designed it that, I don't know, I really like it. And considering it's a sub-$1,000 quartz watch,
I saw someone on Instagram had the White Isle Panda version, and actually also I think I was browsing eBay, and I saw something, or eBay, or no, it was actually Amazon. So you know how Amazon has their AI, future what you want to buy,
Minority Reports.
Yeah, exactly. So they have already predicted what I'm going to buy, and exactly. Down below it had two of those. It had yours, and then it had the Panda version, and I definitely clicked on it and added to the algorithm. So
yeah, this button strap adds a little bit of extra visual bulk to it, because I was concerned that it was a bit small at the start, but with that extra visual bulk, but they've just done a great job of it.
Yeah, but it's 39, right? Yeah, I'm kind of glad we've definitely been through a wave of large to back to small to back to regular size watches, I feel, in the industry, and at least since the time I've been a collector. Because when I started collecting, it was like everybody was like, oh, 44, that's no big deal. And then there was a bit of a backlash a couple of years ago that was like, listen, small wrists and folks that are just like, I'm not ready to step up to the Panerai sized Casio here. So
yeah, and I'll talk about it in a bit when I talk about my little UK trip. But I did go into a Rolex AD to try on the date just again, so I'll talk about that a bit later on.
Right.
A bit of a progress update. Well, a progress that there's no progress, but
yes,
if you're playing along at home,
an update. Yeah.
Okay. So that was mine. So what are you wearing?
So I have my White Dial Sinn 104 on. It's I went back to, I was doing like you, had a bit of traveling. And I had my 3, I think we talked about on the live stream, my 3 watches that I had, and this was one of them, and it's definitely definitely just casual. I mowed the lawn yesterday, I was working on the car today, so totally no worry at all. And it was interesting, I don't know if you caught, but Sinn was kind of in a couple of YouTuber news lately, kind of caught my attention.
I haven't seen it myself. I heard I was following it when they bought out the different coloured dials, didn't they, along with
right, yeah. Who was it? Industrial Design Guy on YouTube. Which is great. I enjoy his channel. Did a whole spread on sort of why Sinn and what they're all about. I definitely enjoyed that, and it was sort of like an overview of the brand review, if you will. And it helped, it solidified my decision to, like, it's like it's such a good standard, like, tool watch aesthetic, which I absolutely love, and the value is there, and it's and then I think yesterday Teddy Balbazar had a list of watches that are no longer best value. And the Sinn, what is it? The 576. What is that brand? That model?
I'm going to say something very cheeky then, or
Okay.
cheeky now. I wonder if whether he's got. They've spurned his advances to become a reseller. Allegedly, supposedly.
Okay.
Maybe he's trying to get sued.
Yeah, maybe. And so then, who was it? Okay, so it was the 556 that we're talking about. Both the Arabic and the plain. He was kind of saying that it, at now with the price point, it's not maybe that good of a value. So
this is their standard 3-hander.
Yeah, exactly. I'm literally looking at one on eBay right now for $1,100. So that's the buy it now price. That's not even the negotiate price. So I don't know. I think that's fine.
This one's a great way, if anybody's not familiar with the design of this one looks, I'd say, is a great way of getting into the IWC look, isn't it? It's got that sort of...
Especially that bracelet, too.
Yes.
There's the different style. But
it's engineer's bracelet, is it? It's called.
I think so. Is that actually the fine link? I think that's on the fine link. It looks like it looks like an engineer's bracelet, but that might be a brushed sort of fine link. And then Federico was asked why he would or wouldn't get a Sinn dealership. And so Federico was interesting because he sort of did the same. He I didn't say he dodged it, but he spoke about the agreement and the sort of like agreement that exists to only sell watches in North America from certain people, and you have this like special agreement. And he was saying he doesn't think the margins that that Sinn would fetch from a business perspective would be good as a single brand. He sort of said that if he had like 4 or 5 brands that he'd bring them on as an additional brand. He also mentioned that and this is one of those things that frustrates me about like the truth of watch sales versus what the subjective idea of what they're worth. And so he's first to say they don't retain their value as much as people think, but then he went on to say that he does really well selling used Sinn. And so I'm like one of those things, not necessarily true.
Well, it adds credence to, because if Federico's saying the margins are lower, that's actually more of an advantage to the consumer, isn't there? Because it means you're getting more watch for your money. And a shout out, Federico's been doing some incredible content lately. I'd say for the last, as long as he's owned Del Rey watches, because he hasn't been afraid of saying controversial things.
Yep.
Whereas definitely when we all start out, we don't want to upset anybody, so we're all kind of dancing around things. But now he doesn't dance around stuff, and I think he's adding a lot of value to the community.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, and his disclaimer was like, this is his opinion he gave his opinion as a watch collector, and then he gave his opinion as a business owner. It was fascinating because it was, that's he is that, and so it's interesting to see sort of his take. So like I said, Sinn on the topic on YouTube in a couple ways recently.
Yeah, and there's some great. I mean, Sinn's a great brand, isn't there? Another one, if you like the Sinn look, Damasco, that's got a great story around it, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think Sinn probably gets. I mean, we talk about it a bit, don't we? But you don't see it often come up on other channels.
Yeah.
Well, before I go into, I'll tell a little bit about my Rolex AD experience, but I saw a couple of watches whilst I was in the UK, and the one, new watches, I went into a lot of dealers and saw new watches. I'll also talk about some amazing vintage ones I saw as well. But I saw this Longines, the Spirit chronograph, which... The Longines Spirit, it's the chronograph version, blue dial. It was awesome, this thing. Cool. I have never been blown away by a Longines, seeing one in a showroom, but this thing was awesome. I think what they're doing with this heritage Spirit sort of pilot watches, I was really, really impressed. So if anybody's interested in that watch, I would go and check it out because it is larger, it is quite big, but I was so impressed with it.
Yeah. Is it and this is they're doing a blue dial here, but didn't they come out with a black dial originally? Yeah, there we go.
Yes,
we're looking at it now. I see. Okay, and then it's got the little what's the button on the left hand side?
Yes, so it's got an additional crown, which looks like a helium escape valve, but I think that's doing a little bit of research before, it might be to set the date.
Right. Okay. Because it's not 7750, so it's not. It's interesting that they'd add a different crown there. It's not. It's not. I don't think it takes away from the watch.
I wonder if it's because it's a aviation inspired piece. I think that you might be traveling over different time zones, so you need to set the date quickly. But it does seem odd to have a dedicated crown to it when it's not often that you have to do it, perhaps once a month. But I suppose if it's aviation inspired. So I was really impressed with that. And then in other news that dropped was did you see the new Jaeger Ultra Polaris that they dropped? I'm a big fan of this Polaris watch. It's just a little bit rich for my blood. But this amazing green dial version with the date, it looks incredible. I think you'd have to see it in person because the dials, like
it's a super dark green. Super dark green. I've seen the blue. I'm more a fan of the blue than the green.
Yeah, well, they don't make a blue in this date one. The next problem is they only make a black, and they make a blue without the date, and then they make a black with the date and a sort of a faux-teenerish. Yeah. But
so a Sam problem, not a Kris problem. Got it.
Exactly. I have to have the date on a watch, as you know. I have to have. And I mean, speaking of, I love this, but speaking of green dial watches, I've got my name on the list for the Rolex Datejust 41 with the either green dial or green motif dial. And I thought whilst I was in the UK,
might as well put your name in there too.
Oh yeah, I know. Can you imagine? Well, I just see if they had it. And I went into a great Rolex AD in Manchester, and the guy sat with me and my wife for probably 30 minutes talking all sorts of watches. And I've also had good experiences in 2 Rolex ADs in Orlando as well.
Oh, okay.
And so I know people comment that they have a bit of a hard time in the Rolex ADs, but so far I've had nothing but so far positive experience. There was one when I went down to London where they wouldn't let us in the door unless we had an appointment, but that wasn't them overtly being, But the Rolex AD, I tried on the Datejust 41. It is a big watch. I will get used to it though, but it is a big watch. But he was saying that in fact he thinks that Rolex are spinning up a new factory just to make the dials. Okay. So I don't know whether I'm in it for the long haul, whether it's going to be towards the end of the year. The Orlando AD said it would probably be a month or two, but this gentleman in the UK was more down the lines of, no, you could actually be looking towards the end of the year. So I'll keep my name on the list for it. Obviously not keep my hopes up on it.
Right. Yeah, my Rolex news is over on our Discord group. I posted a screenshot of Chrono 24's value, one of their value charts.
Oh, yeah.
Of the white dial Oyster Perpetual, the 114300. And, yeah, trading in the 14,000s. So my take on this...
Yeah, because that's probably the least desirable, would you say? Maybe the black dial.
I mean, I liked it. That's something I would, I was interested in at the time. At the time it came out in 2018.
Well, people were going for the funky colors, weren't they?
Yeah, I think, But, I mean, my comment there and my comment here is I strongly believe that non-watch people are buying these and adding them to an asset portfolio.
Yes.
And, yeah, so I will be happy to wait for when that goes away, and it may not ever go away, but it's sort of disappointing because you're and this is a very parallel with our our moon swatch situation. You have people that are passionate collectors, people that are interested in the brand, people that want to get something, and they're just absolutely being scoffed up by people that it's going to live in a safe, and then people think that it's going to be worth it might be worth something someday, this sort of thing. I just saw, and I'll tie it into cars and then I'll stop complaining. I just saw a video where a guy had figured out that there's a bunch of popular cars, this silly Nissan Figaro. Okay, it's this funky looking car from the early 2000s that is made to look like a car from the 30s that Nissan came out with.
Oh, I think I know this one.
Yeah, with the round headlights. It looks like a mini vintage Thunderbird kind of.
Yeah, it's called something else in the UK. I'm sure of it, but there was actually a lot of these in the UK at one time. I can be corrected on this.
So, this guy in Tennessee or whatever, just started to watch this video. This guy in Tennessee was like, is just basically taking a chance on the 25-year rule. So these can't be sold in the US for another a couple of years or whatever. Or I think it's just passed or whatever. So he bought like all of them. He has like hundreds of them. And you're just like, dude, now, and so he has hundreds of them, and now he has them listed for sale for like $30,000. So you're like, so a 25-year-old car from Japan, basically being sold as like a new car here. I'm just, it makes me grumpy because you're like, if you have the money, I guess, but I can't. I just don't know how the financials make sense for that, to like buy a bunch of cars, bunch of watches, put them in a safe, and then bet against inflation, and then also bet against, like, especially cars, like this is like, you have to have like cheap as free storage for this stuff.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm by no means the authority on there's been a lot of discussion, hasn't there, about is the Rolex bubble bursting and all of that, which of course it isn't. Yeah. But Paul Thorpe did a great live stream with a couple of dealers, Spencer, and they discussed in depth this topic, and it was extremely interesting. If you are interested in is the Rolex bubble bursting and all of that kind of stuff, they had a very interesting take on it, and they're saying that you might see some pricing fluctuation because, to your point, Chris, it's flippers selling to flippers to keep an inventory and to keep stock moving could be one of the possible things with it. But yeah, it's not great for us. But they were saying that certain models might be going down in price, but other models are. It's not a brand. It's not Rolex that is going down as a whole. It might be certain brands from certain people that have been trading well over the odds anyway. So.
Yeah, I
that's
think
really.
I think Federico said something like that in one of his previous ones where he's like, now we're in like a, the game of financial musical chairs where nobody wants to get caught holding the bag of, unmovable Daytonas that they purchased at a crazy price that they want to sell at a crazy price. They're not being able to move them. And so then, they're like, if the market drops, like, are we going to be, is $1 million of our inventory going to disappear in a hot second?
I took an absolute bath on crypto at the moment, but that's because it's so easy to trade and it's, what people are exiting quick. So, I mean, I'm going to keep hold of my crypto, but I think a watch will always be worth something, won't it? It won't be. Yeah. Somebody's not going to fire sell a Daytona for $50.
True. But to your crypto point, there's the you got in and you bought a ton of it super early and you were able to buy a watch. So you've already had that one experience. And if you could go back in time and put $10,000 more in, you absolutely would, but no one can go back in time. So now you're like, all right, well, I still want to play in the market, but it's never going to give me the return that I'm planning. So, this is it's frustrating because like we are no longer talking about watches. We're talking about, widgets made of gold.
Yeah.
Widgets made of gold that also, if there's a reseller or a wholesaler who is going out of business and has to sell a bunch of this stuff for pennies on the dollar, it's not going to make the news.
That's true.
Yeah. What's going to, I mean, I've seen some stuff on crypto going down, but like you're not hearing the same stories of like, I lost the woe is me stories don't make it to the front page. I made $4 million on GameStop goes to the front page, but the I lost 20 grand doesn't. So
yeah, exactly. And it's all I'm still invested in certain cryptos as it's the joke is you're trying to catch a falling knife, but there's certain ones that I think are definitely going to go up in value.
Yeah.
As this is not a channel for financial advice, I will keep that to myself.
Yeah. That's that's really that's kind of the takeaway. Like now, like as soon as you start treating these things like a value proposition, it kind of is like it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. So we'll continue on with our value, vintage and non-vintage collectible watches.
Well, exactly. So let me tell you about anyone who's been following me on Instagram and on Discord, etc. I've been in the UK for a week. Mainly to see family, but on the Wednesday just gone, I went to London and met up with some fellow YouTubers. So I met up with John and Palm, who do a live stream called The Tea Room. The channel is The Tea and Tickers. I've been on there a few times as well. It's a good laugh. I would say if you're adverse to strong language, there's certain. I don't swear on there. You won't see me swearing on there, but there's certain language elements that just be careful of. But they're very passionate about watches, which is great, and I always have a great time when I'm on there. So I met up with them, the John and Palm, and we went to Burlington Arcade, which I've been to London multiple times, but I've never been to Burlington Arcade, and essentially it's a small arcade, but it's full of watch shops, and a lot of them vintage watch shops, and we saw some just incredible watches. So we saw a James Bond Rolex, so the Sean Connery one.
Oh, right.
Which was just spectacular. Of course, it didn't have a price in it in it on the window.
Right.
We saw some extremely rare Daytonas. one of the things that I was impressed about was we saw an Omega Olympic timing clock.
I did. I saw your picture of that. That was really cool. That was really cool because it's like encased, but apparently it says it's like encased in like that's a metal, so it's like a painted red. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it was amazing to see it used. It was from 1962 when these watches needed to be split second accurate.
Yeah.
And the whole Olympics was timed by these Omegas. I mean, now it's all digital, obviously, but it's nice to see.
Yeah, hand timing. I mean, yeah, it's pretty crazy.
And then I saw a birth year Rolex Pepsi.
Oh, there you go.
GMT Master. Now, I would like to tell you how much this was, but I mentally refused to go in and ask because the last thing I wanted from the rest of the holiday was to be obsessing about how to pay for a 1980 Pepsi Rolex, but just to see one there. There was literally a shop window where they had Pepsi GMTs lined up in date order.
Yeah. Oh, I see that.
Which was just fantastic. So, I definitely didn't go in and ask. I must have been at that window for at least 15 minutes ogling this Pepsi.
I mean, 3-year guarantee. I mean, you're good. It's like 20% off all vintage.
Yeah, Kris is
20% off what?
Yeah, it's for some reason they had a 20% off vintage Rolexes in the window, and which was laughable, really. Because,
yeah. Because you're right. Yeah, that feels like oh, it's 20% off whatever this says. Boop, 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 boop.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like yeah. So I don't know. Maybe what do you think? What do you think that was going for?
I don't know. I had in my mind
10?
It was about. Yeah, I had in my mind it was a little bit more. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe 10, 11. That'd be my guess, knowing nothing about this market.
Well, then I went on Chrono 24, of course, which and I couldn't find an exact 1980 Pepsi, but they did have a 1980 root beer on there, and that was about 13,000, so that was well out of my price.
All right. And the root beer is kind of one of those ones that may be less desirable or more desirable depending on your. So okay, all right. That seems like I'm right in the ballpark.
It's definitely one that goes in and out of fashion, but yeah, we saw some amazing watches, and then after that we met up with Paul Thorpe. So if anybody, I'm sure anybody listening to this knows who Paul Thorpe is. You can tell from his channel that he's a genuine nice guy, and he really is in person a really genuine nice guy.
That's great.
So he took us for coffee in Selfridges, and he nearly bought we were in Selfridges, and Selfridges have a pre-owned watch in there, which I didn't know. And Paul's going through a bit of a phase of buying the Omega Pro Ploffs. And they had a titanium, the rose gold one, who Don on our Facebook group also has.
Oh wow!
But this was a crazy watch, Kris, because it's a huge chunk.
Yeah, that block.
But in titanium, it's crazy. Wow. It's just crazy how light it is.
So he almost bought that. Wow. Okay.
Well, yeah, he wanted to pay a little bit less for it than he wanted to pay what he believed it was worth.
Okay.
Which he was right. They had it a little bit, probably because you were paying a tax for it being in Selfridges.
Right. Yeah.
So
if it's on display downtown, there's usually exactly.
Yeah, there's a little premium to it. So he actually he ended up walking away from it. But they did actually at least enter into a discussion with him about negotiating the price, and they actually went and rang head office and stuff while we went and had a coffee.
Oh, all right.
Interesting, the sales associate in there who was in front of the case with all the Rolex and everything was wearing the Brian May Seiko 5 on an Uncle Seiko strap.
That's funny.
Yeah, and so it was great to see that in person. He absolutely adored it.
Yeah, that's cool. I think it's great when watch salespeople can be watch enthusiasts as well. I hope it doesn't ruin them. I don't think it will, but I think it's great.
Yeah, so it was a really, really good day out in London as well. And Paul actually wasn't wearing a watch himself because
Oh, really?
he's actually really concerned about the watch crime in there. And I think there was even a video of two guys on mopeds breaking into some guy's car while he was stuck in traffic and ripping a watch off his wrist. So, yeah, I think the watch crime in most major cities it's definitely going up, isn't it? But
yeah,
particularly in London. I mean, I felt pretty safe in London, and I feel pretty safe when I was in Manchester as well, because I know my way around Manchester, and I only had my Christopher Ward on it. But having said that, I mean, the Christopher Ward does look a lot more expensive than it.
Yeah, it's I can only speculate at like what the thieves are after. I'm sure the thieves are just after the big stuff, and I'm sure they're just spotting the big stuff.
Well, do you think? Well, I'm answering my own question here because it definitely would concern me if I had a really expensive watch on. I am not somebody that it's not worth the flex value or whatever that would be. It's not worth me a pose. To put myself in that much.
Yeah. I'm like, I would even say, I would not have a blue dial Steinhardt on my wrist in downtown because it's like from 100 feet away on a moped, that thing looks like a Smurf, and someone knows that's that it's gold, and so they're gonna snatch it up regardless.
That's actually a great point, isn't it? Because some of those Steinhardts and other brands as well.
Even an Invicta, like the blue Pro Driver. I mean, my father-in-law's got one of those, and the first time I saw it like he was walking around with it, and I was like, wait a minute. and then it was like, oh, it's the Invicta Pro Driver. We'll give him props for it. But yeah, I feel like that's you're kind of flying close to the sun there with that too.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I don't think I saw many. I'm trying to think if I saw any decent watches on people's wrists whilst I was in London. I think I saw one guy wearing an Omega, but I didn't see anything extravagant. And we were on Bond Street that has a. It was funny because Bond Street has a Richard Mille store.
Oh, okay.
And there's nothing in it. They had one watch in the window, which was a circular one, which I didn't know Richard Mille made.
Oh, fancy.
But there was a Richard Mille actually in one of the retail stores that they had in the Burlington Arcade as well. So you kind of got to see one close up.
Any other interesting vintage non popular brand or maybe you mentioned the Omega, but.
Well, there was a store that had not only a lot of vintage Rolex, but also a lot of vintage Tudor as well.
Okay.
And they had a Tudor Snowflake Submariner.
Yep.
But it was like over £30,000 or something. So wow. I know nothing about value in vintage Rolex, and I know even less about value in vintage Tudor, but they had some incredible Tudors that were in the Oyster Perpetual cases, and quite a few interesting ones. I didn't take anywhere enough photos because I was a little bit embarrassed about standing there with my phone, but Palm and John did take a lot more photos, so they kindly had sent me a few as well
that's cool
to share if I turn into a video. But it was a really interesting day out. If anybody's on there going to London, or you live in London, if you live in London, you'll know what Burlington Arcade is. But we didn't go in any of the stores on Bond Street. We tried to go into the Rolex, but they actually wouldn't let us because we didn't have an appointment. But they weren't nasty about it or anything. They just said, sorry, it's appointment only.
Sorry,
whereas at the one in Manchester, they invited us straight in, and we were chatting about Rolex for quite a while actually. So that was really cool. But yeah, so it was a really fun trip. It wasn't all about it was one day reserved for watches,
secondary,
and the rest of the day was catching up with some family and friends because I've not been back to Manchester for
I feel like that's if I'm going any place exotic or doing any international travel, Or, even like Vegas, even like a fun place. I'm definitely more thinking about that now, more sort of keen to think about like, hey, we're going to be in northern Italy. Maybe we could drive across the border. Just saying, like, or we're going to like, I mean, if I'm ever doing a Germany trip, I'm 100% going to take a day and go over to the Sinn factory for 100. Absolutely.
Well, that's a great point, and I forgot to mention as well. In the Manchester has got a lot more vintage watch shops that had open as well, and all of them had Rolexes in the window.
Mm-hmm.
There's more pre-owned Rolexes for sale in the windows of these shops than you'll ever see new in a Rolex store, even though they have got exhibition pieces. And two interesting things I forgot was, first of all, the exhibition pieces in the UK are working models that will eventually get sold.
Okay. So not really exhibition, but it's actual stock.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
They are
actual stock. Okay.
They are assigned to them for exhibition purposes, and I guess they would sell them if a new model comes out. Whereas in the US, the exhibition models are non-functional. But the other thing as well is in the centre of in Manchester, there was quite a big, for a watch store, Bremont store. Empty. Like I never saw, because it was right by the hotel.
Wow.
I mean, it was full of watches, but there was no punters in there.
Oh, I see.
And so it was interesting that, because our hotel was nearby, so we were walking past it. So I wonder how they're doing. And I also did go into any Montblanc shop that I happened upon, because I am intrigued about this diver. It is sold out absolutely everywhere. I know Dave at Scottish Watches actually rang, because they are quite pally, deservedly so, with the Richemont Group, who is the parent company, of course, of Montblanc, and Dave pulled in favors. He had his contacts there searching around to try and find him one of these divers, and I'm talking about this the Montblanc 1858. There's an ice blue, and then there's a green one, and they are literally sold out everywhere. Who thought Montblanc would have a watch that was as rare as hen's teeth after a while? But I'm absolutely intrigued by this watch. Apparently, speaking to Scottish Watches guys on that podcast that we did, it's spectacular, this watch. It's $3,190 on the bracelet.
Yeah.
It's spectacular in person, so I am like super intrigued.
So the dial is looks like frozen blue ice.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's
cool.
what it looks like. It's a diver. It doesn't have the reason that I like the look of it is it doesn't have those cathedral style hands that they have on their other watches, which I'm not a huge fan of.
Yeah.
But I went into one in London. I went into a Montblanc in Manchester. I went into a Montblanc store in Dallas Airport. The guys in Dallas hadn't even seen one, let alone had one for sale.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, this is in your catalog, or it will be.
Yeah, so I mean, they've gone all out with it. It's got ISO 6425 for diving. It's water resistant to 300 meters. I guess the reason that made me think of this is it actually reminds me of a Bremont watch. It looks like is it the S300 or whatever? But I'm absolutely intrigued by this.
It looks cool. Montblanc. It looks good. Yeah. And what's the logo? Is it on the dial there?
It's a mountain. I think it's the Montblanc Mountains. Actually.
Oh, okay.
The mountain range. I could be wrong here. Anyone could correct me. But the blue glacial pattern dial is inspired by the Mer de Glace Sea of Ice glacier of the Mont Blanc Massif. Its texture was achieved by using an almost forgotten ancestral technique called gratin bois. I probably said that wrong.
So is everyone maybe unique? You wonder with how they kind of look. I wonder if the texture is unique on all of them. That's interesting.
Yeah. We should. Yeah, maybe I'll do a bit more research on this for next week. But
super cool looking.
And sorry, I know we do have some listeners in Switzerland and France, so apologies for just murdering the pronunciation of both the Sea of Ice and the
yeah.
technique that's used to get that pattern on the dial. But yeah, I think they've done it, and of course it's got the date on it, so that's a huge winner.
Perfect.
So this definitely intrigues me as well, but I'm still sticking true to my one watch challenge. I have not broken my watch challenge, and I saw a moon swatch as well.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So Palm, Night Wrist Watchman on Instagram, also on the Tea and Tickers podcast, he had one. He had the one that I like, the one with the beigey, the taupe case and dial.
That's
Mercury, I think.
Mercury. Mercury's gray.
Mercury's gray. So then it's not Saturn.
Not Saturn. And was it Venus?
Might
maybe?
be. Yeah, I thought.
No. Not Venus is the blue. What am I saying?
Is it?
Oh no, the Venus that was Uranus was the blue. Oh jeez, Chris, I don't even know.
It's.
This is how much I've forgotten about them.
Well, it's funny because they actually, both John and Palm, before they met me in London, they went to the swatch shop. I went to the swatch shop, the main swatch shop in Manchester. They hadn't even seen them, so they weren't available in Manchester at all.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And he actually said that they went to the Swatch watch store and it was shut, and the guy was kind of through the glass. We haven't got any moon swatches. So I mean, I'm still I still can't believe
Here we are,
how poor this rollout of a watch was, and they're putting the staff in danger.
Yeah, right. I know, right? They got the store locked up. They're shouting through the glass. They got all sorts of stuff happening.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. So they did actually try and get one. I think it is Mission to. I think you're right.
Jupiter,
it's Mission to
Jupiter. Okay, all right, Jupiter, yeah.
But Palm had it. It actually put an aftermarket bracelet on it. It's a decent watch. It doesn't feel overly plasticky, to be honest. That's what I was worried about. But it's a smooth action. It's a quartz watch, so you get that quartz actuation of the chronograph where you just press it and it goes.
Right.
I've held fast. I've not bought a single watch so far this year in lieu of the Rolex, but that Montblanc definitely got me intrigued, shall we say?
Yeah, that looks good. Awesome. Cool.
Well, everyone, that was a bit more free-form one this week, which is always fun to have occasionally. We'll be back with more topic. We've got a live stream coming up this week as well. If you want to join in on the conversation, also head on over to Discord or our Facebook group. As always, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on Casual Watch Talk. Thanks, guys. Bye.